Hey, welcome to our, today we're going to be talking about sensory bins and sensory collages. So there are all different ways to make sensory bins. I am encouraging you to just experiment and figure out something that your child really likes. Maybe it's pom-poms. In this picture, they're using pom-poms and an ice cube tray. This is really fun to use because you can pick up the pom-poms, feel the texture of the pom-poms, and then put them in the ice cube tray. It can be just an activity that a child can engage with almost independently, or if you choose to sit and kind of narrate their activities, it can really enhance language because you're kind of allowing the activity, the materials themselves to dictate the activity. Here is an example of rice and popcorn in a bin. And there are also ice cream scoops and artificial flowers. But as you can see, there's not any one way to make a sensory bin. You can put toys or scooping objects in a bin together with something that has a consistent texture. So whether it's oatmeal, rice, or beans, all these things are pretty useful to also have pressure on the hand. So when someone puts their hand in a bin, they can feel the pressure and then also feel the little particles getting smaller in their hand and bigger. Here is an example using bugs and magnifying glasses. Here is an example using, really specific kind of consistently shaped toys that maybe they're going to sort them and put them in these baskets. I'm not sure. That's a more directed version of the sensory bin. You can definitely use it that way. A lot of times in art, we use it more of an open-ended invitation. Either any approach will, the point is to kind of help the child engage. So from the sensory bin, before I get onto that, I'm going to stop that share and just show my example, which is real simple. This is a sensory bin, and I'm using clear glass so that you can see. There's, even just the feeling of rice for some students is really relaxing, and to be able to squeeze it and see how it can kind of come back out of your hand, or having the hand be underneath it. And always using words like keep the rice in the bin, keep it inside the bin. It can be really helpful to give a direction to what you want to happen, reminders for what you want the child to do. I have these little pieces of pasta that I could use to, in this case, I'm trying out what do I need to make them stand up. So you have the pasta, or you can use, let's see what they were doing in the pictures. They had some toys. And ways to encourage language would be like, what's the dinosaur? Is the dinosaur under the rice? You can put under, you can put the rice on. And if you were targeting one word, for example, on a device, you might want to be pushing on and then putting the rice on. It doesn't always have to be connected with language, but it can be a really fun way to target a few different things. So back to sensory bin concepts. I have something written up here that we can show. So, full screen. Okay, so bring your shared window to the front. Resume share. Oh boy, here, let's try that again. Share. Okay, I think I got you. So the benefits of sensory play, and by the way, art making is almost always sensory play. Some art materials have more sensory kind of input than others. So anything that has a texture and anything that you're inviting a student to touch and feel, especially that does sensory, right? We're engaging our senses. And also, of course, our senses are not just touch and feel. They're smell and taste, but we don't often taste art materials. But vision is a sense. So it helps make connections in the brain, especially when students use both hands or reach across the center of their body. And by that, I mean going across. So if there's a bin here and I want the student to reach forward, I have it here, but I can inch it this way and then they're reaching across. If I'm noticing that they're using one hand, I might move it a little bit this way, like little by little. And that cross body, this is the midline, right? Helps with making connections across the two hemispheres of the brain. So that's what I think. So that's a really great way to help students with language and processing difficulties. Okay, so let's go back, or language and processing goals. I'm gonna go back to this. Let's see if we can do it. All right. Sensory play encourages the development of motor skills, both fine motor and gross motor. The bigger the movements, that's gross motor. The smaller the movements are fine motor. It supports language development, especially when we witness the play and offer language. So rather than like dictating the activity, the language development often helps. I've seen in art therapy where we are seeing what the student is putting out there, seeing what the student is expressing by their movements, and then kind of just offering language about that. So I see that you're putting the pasta in the rice. Wow, there's the pasta in the rice. I see that you're putting the, dinosaur in the rice. There's the dinosaur. The dinosaur says "roar." Those kind of just reporting. I like to think of it like narrating a sports game or reporting the weather. Like, I see that it's sunny outside. Just kind of reinforces that inner language, right? That there's a voice, like, I exist. These are the things that are happening in my mind. Sensory play also encourages independent movement, exploration, and problem solving. So especially when we let something be, an invitation to art making, rather than it being like we're always having to do hand over hand, or maybe what we're doing is putting our hands in and asking the student to put their hand on top. So you might say, like, pretend this is my hand, right? And I'm showing, like, oh, I'm putting the rice on top. Hey, I wonder if you want to help me put the rice on top. So if this was the student's hand, right? You might ask them, okay, could you put your hand here? You could help me put the rice on top. Oh, you don't want to touch it yet? Here, let's do it together. That can be a different approach, and it can be a little bit less like, I'm going to do this for you, and a little more like inviting the student. Another way is also putting the hand behind the elbow to help guide the hand. And some students are going to be sensory avoidant. They're not going to want to touch the rice. That's the other reason why you might not want to use rice. If you know the student isn't going to like rice pom-poms or oatmeal, a texture that they might like, that can be a good beginning for a sensory bin. Or water can be a super awesome idea. All right, we're going to go back one more time to my notes. And then, so it also can develop stamina and focus. So we're going to, as long as we're sticking with this activity, it can take us in many different directions. Maybe all of a sudden we're like adding, I don't know, pouring or adding just this conversation about, like, what's the dinosaur doing in the rice? Is the dinosaur sleeping in the rice? Maybe the student is just going to keep working that way, and that extends focus. So noticing the one piece of focus that's there, maybe the one piece of focus is that they're staying in their seat, or maybe the one piece of focus is they really have their hand in the bin. and whatever that is, just like meeting it there and then taking it one little step further really helps develop stamina and focus. Okay, so that's the part about sensory bins, and not everybody's going to want to do a sensory bin, or maybe we're at a point where we're done with the sensory bin part, or we're going to put the lid on it maybe and do it another day. But maybe we want to take the items in the bin to another step. And so this is kind of a second project, and maybe it's a different day, a different project. But there's also, I wanted to show the idea of a sensory collage. And I'm going to share the screen about that. Here we go. So here's our bins. And this is a sensory collage. So, I mean, it's just an example of one, right? They used rice. I think they also like put food dye on the rice first, which is really fun to do. You can put food dye on different sections of rice and then let it dry. And then here you have this colored sensory collage material. Let's see, I have another one. This is much more involved. It looks like they put glue in the shape of a bird and then put different, rice and beads, and maybe even that's like a sandpaper element. It doesn't have to become a figurative thing, but in this case, they made it into a bird. Let's see what else. So I did a couple of examples, and I can actually show a quick video of that. So here's a sped up example of some kind of collage, like a sensory collage. I just put glue on cardboard and then covered it with different materials. I can show another one. Let's see. Huh, that's funny. Stop. I gotta start this again. Sorry about that. Here we go. Having a little trouble figuring out my windows here. Okay, and then here's another example. And here I was thinking more about a landscape or something that has a little bit more of a representational aspect, kind of the way the bird did, right? All right, so that's my information about sensory collages and sensory bins. I hope you can try something out. And remember, if you're, trying out a bin, for example, you can definitely save that material and use it again. It's just because you've introduced it once doesn't mean that it and had one result, doesn't mean that you won't have a different result the next time you work with it. And that can be fun. It can be a fun exploration, and reintroducing it can allow the student to get a little more used to it. So I would encourage that, and I would encourage not getting too worried about if you have enough of the material or whatever. This is a pretty small container and a pretty small amount of stuff, and just giving a student the chance to kind of work with something in a contained way, but also that allows them to scoop and to pour and practice those different kinds of skills that one might need to create something or to cook something, or all the kinds of skills that you use in your daily living. This is actually really fun. It's kind of like making a rattle sound. Yeah, I hope you have fun exploring and have a great rest of your day. Take good care.